At the end of your first year, Discover credit cards automatically double all the cash back you've earned. Everything you have earned doubled. See terms. Check it out for yourself. Discover.com/match. It is Independence Day. It's 4th of July. Geoff Schwartz is taking 10 minutes out of his day. I saw him doing some work outside his house on ribs. And cold beers won't stand a chance today at Jeff's house.
Lots of ribs, 2 racks of ribs. Cannot wait.
There you go. So I want to start with a story in your part of the country, Bryce Young. So I have decided that Carolina is my surprise team in the league this year. Somebody doubles their win total. We went and looked this morning, Jeff. Over the last, you go back to the 90s, the average is 6 new playoff teams and at least 4. Yep. So I don't see a ton of surprises in the AFC because the quarterbacks are so good and dominant. The NFC, though, is kind of wide open after Philadelphia and the Niners roster. Is it hyperbolic? Am I over the top? I think Carolina is going to be surprisingly capable with Bryce Young. Your take, your thoughts, what do you see?
Well, everything you hear from Bryce Young is exactly what you would expect coming from Alabama. And all the scouting reports said that he was mentally really far ahead of other quarterbacks. And everything you hear from Carolina is the same thing. I've talked to players who've been in huddles with him there, and they say that he has picked up the offense. He's making audibles. He's doing things that first-year players typically don't do in an offense. I think the question that we all have is the size, right? I mean, you see it right here on the screen. He's not big. How is he going to react when he gets hit the first couple of times? Because you're right. The roster is much better than people think, especially on defense. Their offensive line is young, but getting better. They have a lot of kind of pieces, foundational pieces that continue to improve, to have a good offensive line. The run game last year was better without Christian McCaffrey. You have a really good coach in Frank Reich. And the division, as you mentioned, it's Derek Carr, whatever Saints roster sort of is in flux right now, and the Falcons and the Bucs, who don't really have premier quarterbacks at the moment. So the Panthers can certainly win the division if Bryce Young can stay healthy. That's my concern. He's just not a big guy. Like, he's going to have these large defensive linemen falling on him. Can he stay healthy?
You know, Jeff, you know Andy Reid, and so does your brother. There's been, discussions. It took him 19 years to get his legend. And if you look at Red Auerbach with the great Bill Russell, or Pat Riley, or Don Shula, or Belichick, generally in your coaching prime, Popovich, you get your guy, your Duncan, your Marino, whatever you get. Andy was year 19, and he'd already been successful, but it was a year 19 that he got Mahomes, and he is now blowing away historical records, playoff win percentage, regular season. Tell me the secret sauce when you were around Andy and your brother, your takeaway. If I'd never met him, I'd never seen his team, what is it?
So one thing he says to all the players all the time, whether it's before games, whether it's during training camp, start of spring, he says he wants to let your personality shine on the field. So you have to play within, obviously, the system of the Chiefs and what the organization wants you to do. But then when you're on the field, man, show your personalities. He's not restricting you to be something you're not. If you're a guy that wants to showboat a little bit, you know what? Do that. If you're a guy that's more reserved, do that. But go on the field and show your personality. I think his ability to work with so many different players over so many years, you will not find one person saying anything bad about Andy Reid. Yeah. You won't. You can't find that guy because he lets players be themselves, with obviously in the structure of his system and the Chiefs system. And look, I think what he does best right now is he adapts each season. Each season there's something new in the offense, whether it's with stud wide receivers or not, whether it's new offensive linemen or not. He's always evolving. He's always looking for new.
As I look right now at this upcoming season, I saw a story this morning and I kind of blanched at it when it said, will Dak get over the hump this year? And I thought, folks, I got 10 years, college and pro. I've said for years, and the numbers really foundationally point this out. He is a slightly more athletic version of Kirk Cousins. Pros, trustable, competent. Statistically, down the line, they're dead even on everything. Now, I think Dak moves better. I think Kirk's a little more accurate thrower. Dak has, on average, had better O-lines. I could argue, although not last year, Kirk maybe on average has had better defenses, but they went about the same. When you hear this is the year for Dak to get over the hump, My take is I know what he is, and I'm totally comfortable with him being a B-plus NFL quarterback. And that's exactly what he is. What do you look for, Dallas, this year? How do you view Dak?
Well, right now, Dak is the second best quarterback in the conference, right? I mean, you have Jalen Hurts, clearly number one, and then who's number two? Is it Cousins? Is it Dak? Is it a healthy Matt Stafford? Right now, as we enter training camp, is Dak Prescott, and typically those quarterbacks are the ones playing on divisional round weekend. They're the ones playing in conference championship weekend. Look at the AFC conference, right? And so I think those are the expectations that are rightly put on Dak Prescott because of the NFC conference at the moment. Now, he might not be the second best quarterback come the end of the season or halfway through the season, but right now, with the roster they have, with the conference that is looking like the Niners don't have a quarterback still, right? The Eagles, we know, are really good. It's Dallas. So I think those are the expectations that are rightly put on him. Can he do it? To your point, I don't know. And McCarthy's back calling plays, I believe now, which we saw in Green Bay at the end of his time there wasn't really good. So you combine those two things together, but the offensive line is good. The run game is good. The weapons are there. The defense is there. So it's a lot on Dak this year to be the guy that everyone expects. And he has to, in my opinion, he has to be playing on conference championship weekend for it to be a success.
When we both probably agree on Jordan Love, let's just wait to see him. We don't have high expectations, but that's different with Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. High expectations. Here is the things I worry about, and you tell me if I'm wrong. He's never had a mediocre to bad offensive line. The Jets, that's the number one unit of question. He's never had a defensive coach. He has never been in a division with 4 absolutely competent coaches and teams. The AFC is much better. And I said yesterday, the one stat with Aaron that you can't deny, he's never been a great come-from-behind fourth-quarter quarterback. He's got one come-from-behind playoff win tied with Marcus Mariota. Some of that is, I believe, that Aaron can be a little bit of a finger-pointer in crisis. That's just his personality, a little passive-aggressive, bit of a finger-pointer. He's good when things are good, but he gets prickly and difficult when things are bad. And so in the AFC, you're going to trail. In your division, you're going to trail a lot. I think they're a 9-win team. I don't see them as a playoff team. Am I too harsh? I've been critical of Aaron. How do you view it?
Well, I think they have to make the playoffs to make this work in year one because there might not be much of a year two and year three. I think you're kind of spot on with the things that'll be much different for Aaron, right? The competition's different. The coaching staff's different. He won't have as much control. He hasn't been there for as long as he was in Green Bay. And it's going to be harder. Everything's going to be harder for him in New York. How does he handle all this newness? We saw last year with his new wide receivers how long it took him to sort of get going in Green Bay. What happens when there's a lot more moments of kind of, not as good and the New York media is on him, not like it's going to be in Green Bay. I play New York, man. The media is a lot different in New York and the expectations are just so high, right? The Jets have the longest playoff drought in professional sports right now. And there's a lot of pressure on him to make this work very quickly, as fast as possible with a much tougher division, a much tougher conference. And it's going to be very hard to do. But again, to me, it's playoffs or bust. If they don't make the playoffs, it's a massive failure because you get 2 or 3 years with Aaron Rodgers and that's it. And you look at Buffalo, obviously trying to make their push. I think Miami, and everyone's kind of getting this train right now, is really underrated. They're really good. If Tua can stay healthy, they're going to win a ton of football games. New England guys, if they have a competent offensive coordinator now, like a real offensive coordinator,
yes,
a real guy that will get Mac Jones in the right place with the defense that ended last season on the rise. They're going to be really good too. So you have a very tough division for Aaron Rodgers. It's just going to be a lot harder. Everything's going to be harder for him in New York than it was in Green Bay.
I want to ask you one college question. It's kind of a two-parter, but you have such excellent knowledge. You were a great player at Oregon. Your brother and you combined excellent NFL careers. 2 programs that are glamour programs. They've always recruited good players, but now they have elite recruiters and elite offensive guys. Sark at Texas, Lincoln Riley at USC. The floor is yours for a couple of minutes. This is the most talent either one's had since Mac Brown and Pete Carroll. These are really good teams in an offensive-leaning sport. Give me your thoughts on the Trojans and the Longhorns this year.
Well, the one thing that separates, I think, the Trojans and the Longhorns is Sark is recruiting those big bodies, man, the offensive defensive line. Like, he had a true freshman left tackle last season that's going to be the number 1 tackle taken in 2 years. Like, he's recruiting these offense and defensive linemen. That's still, I think, where Lincoln Riley has fallen short, right? On defense, they have the transfers. We know that. But they're not getting those top 100 linemen, which you would expect a team like USC to be able to pull in. I think that's the one difference right now. Texas has everything going for them. They're in a little bit of a down Big 12, right? Oklahoma come off a 6-win season. TCU's kind of probably take a step back. This is Texas' year. The Pac-12, you know this, Colin, is hard this year, guys. There's at least 6 quarterbacks that'll be drafted in the Pac-12 conference. So it's a much tougher road, I think, for Lincoln Riley to win, especially with trying to retool in the trenches. Sark has done that. He looked at that team and said, look, we need to get bigger, faster, deeper, stronger. The depth is so important, and Sark's building that on the offensive defensive lines. I'm not sure Lincoln Riley is doing quite the same at USC, and that's what worries me, especially when you're playing the offenses of Washington, of Oregon, of Utah. You have to be able to have depth and hit the quarterback, and USC, I think, is not quite there, where Texas kind of has that a little bit more depth in those situations that'll make them a little stronger this year.
By the way, I think LSU's my dark horse to win it all. I love Brian Kelly. I like their quarterback. They went toe-to-toe with Alabama. You can flip a switch at LSU. Ed Orgeron won a title there. And I love Ed, but he's viewed largely as a great coordinator. I think LSU is a factory. I think they have a chance to win it all. It
depends on how Jane Daniels plays, right? It really comes down to that. Brian Kelly never got the respect he deserved in Notre Dame. He won a lot of football games in a place that is now hard to win, right? To be able to recruit to South Bend is much tougher than recruiting to LSU. And we saw the success, obviously, that LSU's had in other sports programs in year 2 with their coaches. Brian Kelly now in year 2, you hope he's able to do that. It comes down to Jane Daniels, Colin. We saw him play. Look, his best season so far was a true freshman at Arizona State. He got better to end last season. If Jane Daniels can continue to improve, mature as a passer, to be a little bit more explosive in the passing game, they're going to win their division. They're going to play most likely Georgia in the SEC championship game. They played him closer last than people thought. It's Jaden Daniels. If he can be the guy, if he's a Heisman contender, they can certainly be in the conversation to win a national championship. Yeah,
and I think he will be. Geoff Schwartz, happy 4th to you and your beautiful family. Fox Sports analyst, former NFL offensive lineman and Oregon Duck. As always, my friend, it's good to see you.
Take care. Thanks for having me.
All right, Geoff Schwartz on the 4th of July, and thank all of you for stopping by. I'm a huge college football fan. I had to sneak a question in. Texas and USC, the last time they played for a national championship, in fact, the only time, this is TV talk, it got a 22.5 rating. That's an NFL playoff game rating. They're glamour programs. I think there's 3 programs in college football, USC, Texas, and Miami. They may not have the fan bases. They may not have this or that. They're glamour programs. They're good for the sport. They broaden the fan base. And over the last several years, probably 10, the West Coast is not watching about college football because outside of Oregon and briefly Washington, nobody was a viable national championship playoff level team. And so I think USC being good, having Heisman, Caleb Williams frontrunner, who already won a Heisman, a lot of eyes out west on college football. The ratings go up. And I don't think there's a sizable gap between USC, Texas, Michigan, and the SEC powers this year that are mostly breaking in new quarterbacks. Hour 2, Nick Wright. It's The Herd. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.